We're going to start this by using acrylic modeling paste. You can either use a brush to spread it on, but that tends to take a really long time. The best way to really go about this is to use a palette knife, and you're going to scoop some up just like you would butter or peanut butter, or if you're doing icing on a cake, and then you are going to smooth it or spread it into all of the sections that you're going to be working on in your painting where you want it to be more three-dimensional. You can do multiple layers to really build this up for that 3D relief-like effect, or you can leave it in a smaller, thinner layer that you can kind of carve and paint into and scoop pieces out. I do try to keep this going the same direction eventually, that all of my lines need to go in my artwork to emphasize direction of movement. So I spread it on just sort of randomly to get it on there, just in those places I want, not the background, because I want to do a wash in the background and have that more out of focus and not be the focus. Now that I have it all on here, I can go in with my palette knife and I can start working and scraping some of those different areas and patterns, especially that watermelon. It's got all those bumpy ridges all over the place. And you can scoop, but you'll notice as you're scooping and spreading, it builds up on your palette knife. You'll need to wipe that off on a paper towel. This does start to dry and harden fairly quickly. It only takes it about half an hour or so to really get going. If you have larger areas, you can take a larger brush to scoop it out. Same thing, just wipe it onto that towel you can throw away. If you really have a lot left, you can also go in and put it back into your container for use later. To get little tiny bumps and patterns, you can do little droplets or dips of it. You can use the palette knife flat to create all of those smaller little spiky areas. And then of course, keeping it vertically, I'm going to pull down from my picnic table at the bottom and go back in these areas. You can see where I had it flat and went tap, 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 tap to make it look rough, the rough eaten edges on the top of the fruit. You can also go in and do that with a paintbrush as well to get smaller peaks on top of there. Once you're finished, you can throw away that paper towel. You'll definitely need to wipe off your tools before it dries, especially if you've used a paintbrush. Make sure it's really rinsed out. You can save your extra paste for another project, or you can throw away any that you're not going to use that might be dirty. Paste has dried. We're going to go through. Now that this is completely dried, we're going to work on the painting part of it today. So you need to have your paint palette next to you and ready. I'm going to start with some of my basic colors up here. And when you're filling things in, you want to try and follow those groove lines that you put into your paste now that it's dry. Makes it a little easier because the paintbrush naturally wants to hit those ridges and stop painting in those areas. But when it does get into some of those tighter, smaller nooks and crannies, you may have to add just a little bit of water to that acrylic paint to really work it down in there. You might even have to scrub it. Kind of get those little speckles in there that you have on things like watermelons or whatnot. I get my brush loaded with paint, and then I tip it sideways and I gently tap, and I kind of do some random in and out zigzag. I'm not going to make it look exactly dot for dot like the picture. You'd be here all day. You don't want to do that. So I just go through and I kind of highlight some areas. And sometimes I pick up some of the thicker paint that's already on there. You might have to reload your brush once in a while. For the lighter area on the table on the left-hand side where my light source is coming from, it got a little dark, so I'm going to go back in and add some water in here to pull that back up. I'm going to use my paper towel to absorb that paint. I don't want it quite this light, so I'm going to go back in with some watered down acrylic, and I'm just going to pull it across horizontally and let it fill in those gaps a little bit more naturally. Remember, we have that paste in there, so it's going to collect in the crevices and corners since it's a bit watered down, and leave the other areas lighter. So any place else I need it a little lighter, I can pick that up with some water, or if I need it darker, I can go back in and add some black or some dark brown to those areas. A lot of working in acrylic is layering back and forth between your under layers, adding some top layers, and working those colors, darks to lights. So I've gone over this a few times now, my darker colors being the shadows, my lighter colors being some of those reflection points and highlights from where my light source is coming in on the left-hand side.